What is cutting, right? All cutting means in layman's terms means to drop body fat, right? When most people want to drop weight, that's it. They just want to drop weight. In a more of a fitness lens, you want most of that weight to be fat, right? You don't want to be losing a bunch of muscle, hard work muscle, because that is obviously a lot slower to build, and you still want to have shape and you want to feel good and be strong. So ideally, when you are entering a cutting phase, you want majority of the weight that you lose to be pure fat mass, and we'll go over exactly how to do that in a later video. Now, who should be cutting? Who is the ideal candidate to start a cutting phase? And the honest answer is really anybody that wants to drop body fat, get leaner, or get shredded, right? But if you are someone that is unsure what to do, you're brand new to the gym, and you're not sure whether to start a bulk or a cut, I would always 10 times out of 10 suggest building the foundation, focusing on building muscle first. Because if you are, let's say, an average guy or girl and you start a cut, you're only gonna be a smaller version of what you are now, right? You're not gonna have those pops, those striations, that definition, that shape that you're looking for, because you haven't spent the time yet to build the foundation, build that muscle, right? So again, if you're someone that's brand new, always focus on building muscle first. It will take some time. Muscle building is a very slow process. It will take a couple of years. I spent the first 3 years in a consistent bulk. I spent the first 3 years focusing on building muscle. I didn't even do my first cut till probably 4 or 5 years in, right? Because that helped me build that foundation, because the reason why that is so important, once you spend couple of years building that foundation, building some muscle, then when you do a cut, you're actually revealing all that muscle, and you'll have a lot more shape. You're gonna be a lot more definition, a lot more striations. Everything will pop, and you're gonna look much better, and not like a stringier, smaller version of yourself, because you actually spend the time building that muscle and building that foundation. Now, why should you cut? If you are someone that is obese or even a little bit overweight, or someone that cannot see like any definition at all, especially in their midsection, then that is someone that should ideally pursue a cut first. If you are someone that's new, it is more than likely that you can actually drop body fat and build muscle while being at a calorie maintenance or even a slight calorie deficit. Right? So again, if you're brand new and you're overweight, I would actually look into a cutting phase where you can build muscle simultaneously with dropping fat. It is critical, it is important to do a cutting phase to drop body fat, obviously for health purposes, lower blood pressure, and obviously all the health implications, but also your body is a lot more efficient when it's leaner, right? Nutrition, partitioning is a big thing. How efficient your body is at partitioning nutrients essentially to your blood, to your cells, is much more efficient at lower body fat percentages than it is when you are overweight or obese. So that is the main reason why you should lean out and do a cutting phase if you are someone that is obese or on the heavier side of the spectrum. Now, what should you expect when you enter a cutting phase, right? How is it different than a bulking phase? One of the biggest differences that you'll notice probably within the first month or two of doing a cutting phase is you won't have as good of a pump in the gym as you would when you have excess energy from a bulk, right? So that's probably the biggest thing. You won't have as much energy. You're not going to be as full. You won't have as much glycogen in your muscles to use to fuel those workouts. So one, your pumps are not as good. You won't have as much energy. You might feel tired or lethargic in the day, especially if you're someone that's doing an extreme calorie deficit, which again, we'll touch on in a sec. I would never recommend. Or just someone that's been a calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time. Those people will definitely notice a lowering of their energy levels. You might feel lethargic. You might not have as good of gym sessions, and obviously your pump will not be as good when you're cutting versus when you're bulking. Now, probably the two most common questions that I see is how long should you be cutting for, and how fast can you expect to see the results? And like with most things in the fitness or kind of realm, I wish I can give you a straight up like generic one number answer, but I can't. It is highly individualistic. There's so many variables at play. Obviously, how much fat you need to lose, probably the biggest one, how far you are from your goals, your genetics, where you are now. All these things come into play with how much fat you need to lose, right? So I can't give you a straight up one number answer. answer. Again, it really highly depends on the individual and kind of how far they are away from their goals. But let's start off with how long should you be cutting for? Again, it really depends on how much fat you need to lose. Let's say you need to drop 20 pounds to get to your kind of goal physique or a physique that you're happy with. Let's say 20 pounds is your goal. So I always recommend with my clients to drop 1% of body fat per week, right? So for me, I'm about 200 pounds. I would aim for about 2 pounds per week, right? So if I want to lose 20 pounds, 2 pounds per week, that yields 10 weeks. So in 10 weeks, I should expect to see 20 pounds lost. Now you might think 20 pounds in over 2 months might seem slow. However, I'm super against these crash diets where you lose 20 pounds in a week. Why? Because it's so unsustainable, right? You basically cut your calories in half, you do an hour of cardio, you go to the gym, you do all these things, which is one, not sustainable at all, and two, as soon as you're done that, you're gonna rebound heavy, kind of pretty much relapse to where you started. So I am super against crash diets. Do not do them. It will screw with you mentally because you're just gonna wind back up right where you started, and it's just, again, not sustainable long term. You wanna do these things where you can maintain the result long term. I'm all about, if I do something now, I wanna be able to kind of sustain that much easier in, let's say, 6 months, right? So again, kind of going back to that is aim for 1% per week. That is super sustainable, and kind of use that as a tracker to determine how much or how far you are away from your goal, and then obviously the farther away you are from your goal, the longer you will need to spend in a calorie deficit. Now, the second part of that question was how fast can you expect to see results? Again, that kind of ties back into what I just said. It really depends on how far you're away from your goal. So if you're 30 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight, it might take a little bit longer. It is totally normal to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 months, even a year in a fat loss phase, and occasionally doing refeeds, again, which we'll touch on in another video with refeed breaks and stuff like that. But again, it really depends on how far away you are from your goals, but you should be aiming for about 1% of fat loss, body weight, per week.